She said she couldn't bear children. The human answer left the galaxy speechless. Helion spoke looked perfect. Glass corridors. White light. Clean air that smelled like metal rain. People moved in lines. Boots tapped in time. Screens whispered shuttle times every few seconds. No one stopped. No one stumbled. In the middle of Transit Hub 9, an alien woman sat on the floor. She held a thin paper slip in both hands like it might bite. Her name was Arya of the Tideland. Her skin had a faint sea glow, like moonlight on water. Her clothes were formal back home, but here they looked wrong. A tide wrap, a silver sash, a skirt made for running on docks, not walking on glass. The paper showed one word in red, void. Arya could not breathe. She had gone to the clinic for the yearly scan. Fertility clearance, the soft voice had said. The printer clicked. The red word came out. On Helion, red meant you no longer counted. No family placement. No long-stay housing. No marriage permit. No future. Not sick. Just removed. The crowd knew the rule. The crowd also knew to look away. Her eyes burned. The floor felt too cold through the thin fabric. She tried to stand. Her knees shook. She sat again. The hub kept moving around her as if she did not exist. A man and two small children stepped out of the lift. They were out of place here. They did not rush. They did not match the rhythm. The man's name was Caleb Rook. He had flown rescue boats once, out past the shipyards, where metal drifted like broken moons. He taught now. Navigation. Ethical response. Act before the rules. That was his quiet line. The girls were Lena, 8, and Sol, 5. They held his hands and skipped to keep up. Lena saw Arya first. Dad? She whispered, tugging his sleeve. She's in trouble. Caleb looked. He saw the paper. He saw the way Arya sat very still, like a person bracing for a wave. He had seen that posture in wreckage fields. It meant the spirit was sinking while the body tried to float. He set down a food tin. He knelt. Are you hurt? Arya blinked. The question was too direct. I am void, she said. The word tasted like rust. She showed the slip. Caleb read it once. He did not flinch. Good, he said, calm and steady. I have enough family for both of us. The line dropped like a rope to someone drowning. Arya stared. She did not understand. Lena took off her scarf and wrapped it around Arya's shoulders. Sol offered a little cup. Warm, she said. Drink. It helps. Footsteps clicked. 2 security officers arrived in polished gray. Their faces were smooth as doors. Sir, one said, please clear this obstruction. She is not an obstruction, Caleb said. His voice did not rise. Decency code, the other recited. Public exposure. Non-compliant attire. The plaza must flow. We're moving, Caleb replied. Not angry. Final. He stood and helped Arya up. Her leg failed. He adjusted without looking away from the guards. See? We are moving. The guards paused. Something in his tone told them this would take time, and time was not allowed here. They stepped back. The crowd flowed again. Caleb guided Arya toward a side bridge. The air changed there. Humid. Green. The maintenance gardens hung like glass lungs. Pipes dripped. Mist hissed. No one came here if they cared about shiny shoes. Arya tried to walk on her own. Why are you helping me? Because I can, he said. Because they didn't. He did not look like a hero. He looked tired, like someone who had decided to be useful anyway. You don't know me, she said. You don't have to know a person to keep them standing, he answered. They crossed under a slow fan. The light moved across their faces like waves. Arya felt heat return to her fingers. Her chest hurt less. The red word still pressed on her mind. Void. Erased. Nothing. What happens to me now? She asked. Tonight? Heat. Food. A door that opens, he said. You will be fine, she warned. The council hates broken lines. He glanced down at his daughters. Lines can bend. Sol walked backward to watch Arya's face. Do you like spicy noodles? She asked. I do not know, Arya said, and almost smiled. It felt strange. Dangerous. They reached a lift that smelled like oil and soap. The doors closed. The hub's noise faded. Through the glass, Helion curved like a bright ring in a black ocean. Arya stared at the city that had just erased her. It looked calm. It was not. You are not broken, Caleb said, eyes on the floor numbers. Arya held the red stamp tighter. The system says I am. Then the system is bad at seeing, he said. The lift chimed. A quiet hallway opened. Amber lights. Steam breathed from small vents. The door plates were plain, each with a family mark. Caleb's read 7 East. He pressed his thumb. The door slid open. Warmth touched her skin. The room was small, clean, real. 2 backpacks by a wall. A pot on a low burner. Drawings taped in a crooked grid. Lena ran to check her favorite picture. Sol dragged a blanket to the couch with both hands. Sit, Caleb said. No lecture. No list of rules. Just one word with space inside it. Arya sat. The couch softened around her, learning her shape. The scarf felt heavy but kind on her shoulders. The floor no longer felt like ice. The red stamp was still red. The world was still sharp. But for the first time since the clinic printer clicked, the fall had stopped. Outside, the perfect ring hummed. Inside, something imperfect made room. A stranger had opened a door. The night had not decided what to do with that yet. The warmth of Caleb's home unsettled Arya. It was too soft, too kind. She sat stiffly on the couch, her hands gripping the scarf Lena had given her. Steam curled from a pot on the stove. The smell, spiced grain, and something faintly sweet, filled the small room. She hadn't smelled food like that in months. Lena and Sol were whispering at the table, unpacking small school satchels, arguing about drawings. They didn't stare at Arya. They didn't whisper about her glowing skin or her strange accent. They just existed around her, as if she already belonged there. Caleb moved with quiet rhythm. Jacket hung. Vince adjusted. He opened a drawer and pulled out a plain bowl. His motions were slow, measured, like a man who used calm as armor. Arya broke the silence first. You live here alone? Caleb shook his head. With them. He nodded toward his daughters. No partner. He hesitated for a moment, then said softly, not anymore. She understood from the way he said it. Loss didn't need many words. He ladled the steaming food into the bowl and set it in front of her. Eat. You've gone too long without it. She wanted to protest, to say she didn't need charity, but the smell made her stomach ache. The first bite burned her tongue, but warmth spread down to her chest. Real food. Real heat. Lena climbed onto the armrest beside her. Do you talk like that because of your planet? Arya smiled slightly, surprised by the question. Yes. Our words breathe slower. We live under heavy air. Like the ocean? Sol asked, mouth full. Yes, Arya said softly. Exactly like that. Caleb leaned on the counter, listening. His face stayed calm, but his eyes, gray and steady, watched her the way pilots watched weather, looking for danger behind clouds. What brought you here? He asked finally. Work, she said. I design fabrics that respond to touch. The colony said they needed creators. Her smile turned bitter. They needed workers. Reclassified. Yes. Textile handler. The words tasted wrong in her mouth. When the test came back void, they erased my housing code. Tomorrow, they'll move me to the charity sector. The girls went quiet. Even they understood what that meant. Caleb rubbed his neck slowly, a habit of thought. That's why everyone walked past you, he said quietly. Yes, Arya whispered. I was not sick, just inconvenient. He didn't say anything for a while. Then, you're not going there. Arya blinked. You can't decide that. I already did. His tone wasn't harsh. It was simple, like gravity. She stared at him, confused. You barely know me. He shrugged. You needed help. That's enough. Lena piped up suddenly. Dad always says rules mean nothing if you walk past people. Caleb smiled faintly. See? I talk too much. Arya wanted to argue again, but the couch felt too safe, the smell of food too human. The fight drained from her chest. Later, he handed her a folded blanket and a large gray shirt that smelled faintly of metal and detergent. You can sleep here, he said. I shouldn't stay, she murmured. You need warmth, not permission. She accepted it. When she lay down, the couch folded itself into a cot. The blanket was heavier than she expected. The shirt reached her knees. She listened to the low hum of the purifier, the quiet laughter of the girls as they brushed their teeth, Caleb's steady voice telling them to sleep. When the lights dimmed, Arya stared at the ceiling. She kept waiting for the sound of judgment, a knock, a warning, anything. None came. Through half-open doors, she saw shadows move. Caleb checking the locks, adjusting the temperature, moving with that same quiet purpose. He wasn't pretending to be kind. He simply was. Her eyes grew heavy. For the first time since leaving the clinic, she felt the pull of real rest. But just before sleep claimed her, a strange thought came. Maybe she wasn't a void here. Maybe, for one night, she existed. Outside, the city lights of Helion spoke traced cold lines through glass corridors. Inside a small apartment on Deck 7 East, a man, his daughters, and one lost alien woman shared silence, warmth, and something that shouldn't have survived in this place, hope. Light filtered softly through the thin window screen, washing the small room in pale gold. The hum of Helion Spoke's systems filled the silence, a low, endless vibration, like the heartbeat of the city itself. Arya opened her eyes slowly, unsure for a moment where she was. Then she smelled food. Real food. Cooked grain, faint spice, and something sweet beneath it. She sat up, blinking. The couch had molded to her shape overnight and was still warm. Her leg ached, but less than before. The oversized gray shirt Caleb had given her hung loosely past her knees. The scarf Lena had draped over her shoulders had slipped to the floor. Caleb's voice came from the kitchen. Calm. Steady. Morning. You slept? Yes, she said quietly. Better than I expected. He turned slightly, holding a pot over the heat plate. You look like you hadn't in weeks. He wasn't wrong. Arya hadn't truly rested since the night she'd left the Tideland world. The colony dorms had been loud, air too dry, light never dimming. She'd worked double shifts, weaving adaptive fabrics for uniforms she'd never wear. And then the test, the red stamp, had taken even that away. The girls came running from their small room, hair messy, laughter echoing. You're still here, Sol said happily. Arya smiled despite herself. Yes, I am still here. Lena climbed into a chair. Dad made breakfast, but he burns it sometimes. I do not, Caleb said dryly, setting the bowls down. Steam curled up between them. The food looked strange, a mix of soft white grains and slices of something pinkish. Arya hesitated. It's safe, Caleb said. Basic colony mix. Varan root mash with sweet oil. Not fancy, but better than vending cubes. She took a cautious bite. Warm, earthy, the kind of flavor that grounded you, made you feel part of something living. Lena watched her intently. You like it? I do, Arya said softly. It tastes like home, but different. For a few quiet minutes, they ate together. It was an ordinary moment in a place built to erase such things. After breakfast, Caleb leaned against the counter, sipping a cup of dark brew. You can stay here today, he said. I have classes to teach. The girls go to school nearby. Lock resets automatically, but the door recognizes you now. Arya's spoon froze midair. You registered me? Temporary clearance, he said, casual. Guest level. You can use the console, the vents, the water line. You're safe here. She stared at him. You could be fined for that. He met her eyes. Then I'll pay it. There was no hesitation, no heroics. Just fact. When they left, the room fell silent again. Arya looked around, uncertain what to do. The air purifier hummed softly in the corner. She moved slowly through the space, careful not to disturb anything. Everything in Caleb's home had purpose. Tools lined neatly on a small shelf. A framed hollow showed him in uniform beside a woman, short dark hair, calm smile. His late wife, she guessed. She stopped before it. There was no grief in the image, just quiet strength. She wondered how long it took him to carry that kind of loss without breaking. By midday, she stood on the small balcony. The city stretched out before her, endless glass and metal. Shining towers, mist drifting between levels like fog above water. Everything gleamed. Nothing breathed. She pressed her palm to the cool glass railing. Her reflection stared back, alien skin dulled by the dry air, faint glow fading. She remembered the ocean wind of her homeworld, the rhythm of waves against coral shells. On Soria, life flowed with the tides. Here, it moved in straight lines. The door opened softly behind her. She turned, startled, but it was only Caleb. Didn't mean to scare you, he said, setting down a paper bag from the market. I wasn't scared, she lied. He smiled slightly. You looked like you were about to fight the railing. Arya relaxed a little. I was remembering. Home. She nodded. Yes, and what it feels like to belong somewhere. He leaned beside her on the railing. Maybe belonging isn't a place, he said quietly. Maybe it's people. She glanced at him. You say that like you believe it. I have to, he said. The stars don't wait for walls. The line stayed between them, heavier than silence. Arya looked back at the city, a shining machine pretending to be a world. And beside her stood a man who still believed in helping strangers, even when the system told him not to. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like running. And for the first time since she'd arrived on Helion, the word void didn't echo quite so loud in her head. The next day passed in slow fragments. The artificial daylight of Helion spoke shimmered against the window, washing everything in white. Arya had grown used to the hum of the purifier, to the soft footsteps of the girls, and the quiet order of Caleb's home. Yet every sound from the corridor made her tense, as if someone would come knocking to drag her away. By afternoon, Caleb returned, his jacket half unzipped, a light sheen of sweat on his forehead. "The academy schedules are a nightmare," he muttered, setting his work pad on the counter. Arya looked up from the small table where she was mending a torn satchel strap with thread from her sash. "You teach rescue work, yes? Rescue ethics and navigation," he said, washing his hands. "How to save lives without breaking the rules too much." "Too much," she echoed, smiling faintly. "Sometimes the difference between saving someone and following procedure is only a few seconds," he said. "And I stopped believing in waiting for permission a long time ago." He turned to face her then, leaning against the counter. "How's your leg?" "Better," she said. "It still shakes sometimes." He nodded. "Good. You're healing." The word healing sounded strange to her, as if it was something people like her were still allowed to do. The girls returned soon after, bringing energy that filled the small room. Lena dropped her bag with a thud, running straight to Arya. "Look, I drew something." She held up a small tablet, a glowing picture of 4 stick figures holding hands under a dome. Arya blinked. "Who is that?" "You," Lena said proudly, pointing at the glowing blue figure beside their father. "Us." Before Arya could reply, Sol added, "We're family now, right?" Caleb smiled gently. "We're a team, at least." Arya wanted to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. No one had called her part of anything in a very long time. Later that evening, the girls worked on their assignments while Arya helped prepare dinner. Caleb handed her a small cutting tool. "Ever cooked Varan root?" "I've woven it into cloth," she said. "Never eaten it." He chuckled. "Then today you'll learn both sides of it." They cooked together, their movements falling into rhythm. Steam curled up from the pan. The air smelled warm and alive. Halfway through, Arya looked at him. "Your wife? She worked in engineering?" He paused, stirring the pot. "She did. Structural analysis. Station repair crew." His voice softened. "She died when the East Dome collapsed during a relief mission." Arya lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry." He shrugged slightly. "It was 5 years ago. The girls were small. You don't stop missing someone like that. You just learn to breathe around the space they leave." She nodded quietly. "On my world, we build memory shells for the dead. We place them in the water so their stories drift forever. Maybe your dome still carries her echoes." Caleb smiled faintly. "Maybe." The silence that followed was gentle, not heavy. For once, 2 people didn't need to fill it. When they sat down to eat, Sol grinned at her plate. "This smells better than Dad's last cooking." "Sol," Lena whispered, but Caleb only laughed. After dinner, he set the dishes aside, and they all moved to the balcony. The air outside was cool and faintly metallic. Below them, the condenser gardens shimmered with vapor, the mist glowing under soft lights. Arya leaned on the railing, watching the steam curl and fade. "When I first came here, I thought this place would feel like freedom," she said quietly. "It doesn't. It's too clean, too empty." Caleb nodded. "Freedom isn't the same as peace." She turned to him, studying his face. "You talk like someone who's seen too much." He smiled without humor. "Rescue pilots usually do." The hum of the city filled the space between them. Distant traffic, the pulse of engines, the slow rhythm of a place built to hide emotion under perfection. "I should go soon," Arya said finally. "Before your neighbors notice." He shook his head. "Let them notice. No law says kindness needs permission." Her voice trembled slightly. "You'll get in trouble." "Maybe," he said. "But trouble's a small price for doing something right." She didn't know how to answer that, so she said nothing. For a long time, they stood side by side, the mist below swirling like slow water. Arya felt her chest loosen, just a little. In a city built to erase mistakes, someone had chosen to see her. And as the artificial night deepened over Helion spoke, she realized she no longer wanted to disappear. Something inside her, fragile, stubborn, human, wanted to stay. Morning came pale and cold, washing the small apartment in thin white light. Arya stood by the window, her reflection faint against the glass. Her eyes traced the city below, towers of silver and mist, too perfect, too still. Helion spoke looked peaceful, but peace here was only silence in disguise. Behind her, the soft sound of footsteps approached. Caleb was already dressed for work, his collar slightly crooked, hair damp from a quick rinse. "You didn't sleep," he said quietly. "I kept hearing the hum," she replied. "This city never rests." He smiled faintly. "Neither do teachers. Or parents." He poured himself a cup of seed coffee. "The girls are still getting ready. You should eat." Arya nodded, but her stomach was tight. Something in the air felt different today. She felt it before the console chimed. The small hollow light flashed blue, then red. Caleb crossed the room and tapped the screen. A digital notice unfolded in midair, glowing faintly between them. Life Quality Bureau, Observation Notice. Subject, Reclassified Void Resident, File 71AX. Purpose, Verification of Household Cohabitation Status. Inspection Time, 1900 hours, tomorrow cycle. Arya's hands went cold. "They found me." Caleb read the message again, slow and steady. "No, they're verifying your record. They'll see I don't belong here," she said, voice trembling. "They'll see you helped a void. They'll find you maybe worse." He cut her off gently. "They'll see a family having dinner. That's all." Her chest tightened. "You can't fake that. They'll read us like machines. Then we'll give them truth," he said. "Truth?" she repeated, almost laughing. "You mean your kindness? My fear? That's not truth to them. It's disorder." Caleb met her gaze. His eyes were calm, but behind the calm was steel. "Then let's show them that disorder can still be human." The room fell silent. He handed her the printed copy. "They come at 1900. We have one day to prepare. You don't have to pretend to be anything you're not. Just stay." Arya lowered her eyes to the paper. The red bureau emblem glowed faintly at the top. Observation. That word meant judgment. She had been judged all her life by systems that saw her as a number. This time, the system would look into her face. Lena and Sol burst from their room, breaking the tension. "Dad, we're late." Caleb looked over his shoulder, voice soft again. "You'll be fine," he told Arya. "We'll face it together." When they left for school, the apartment felt too quiet again. Arya stood there for a long time, staring at the notice. Her fingers traced the edge of the paper until it crumpled. Then she began to move. She started by cleaning the floor, sweeping, wiping, folding every piece of cloth. The motion helped her breathe. When she was done, she rearranged the small table, lined up the utensils, and smoothed the couch fabric flat. She worked until her hands ached. By mid-afternoon, the place looked spotless, too spotless. It looked like a model room, not a home. She stopped in the center, breathing hard. This is what they wanted to see. Perfection. Obedience. Emptiness. But that wasn't who she was. Arya went to her satchel and pulled out the soft strands of woven fiber she'd carried since leaving Tideland. They were tiny fragments of her old life, shimmering ribbons that caught light like water. Slowly, she tied them together and draped them along the wall above the heater rail. The colors shifted between blue, violet, and silver as the air moved. When Caleb came home that evening with the girls, the ribbons were glowing softly in the warm light. He stopped in the doorway. "You've been busy," he said. "I was tired of the room looking like a cage," she replied. He smiled slightly. "It doesn't look like one anymore." Lena gasped. "It's beautiful. It moves like the sea. It breathes," Arya said softly. "Everything alive should." Dinner that night felt almost normal. The girls laughed over something small. Caleb pretended to scold them, and Arya smiled without meaning to. Later, when the girls were asleep, she and Caleb stood together on the balcony. The city below glowed like a frozen ocean. "They'll come tomorrow," she whispered. "What if they ask questions we can't answer?" "Then we answer with what's real," he said. "And what's that?" He looked at her, eyes reflecting the light. "You, me, 2 kids, a home. That's as real as it gets." She stared at him for a long time, unable to speak. The mist rose slowly around them, wrapping the balcony in soft white. For the first time since she'd arrived on Helion Spoke, Arya didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. And even though fear still sat heavy in her chest, another feeling grew quietly beside it, something she hadn't dared to feel in a long time. Hope. The next day crawled by, heavy and silent. Even the hum of Halion's spoke's ventilation system felt slower, like the city itself was holding its breath. Arya woke before dawn and began preparing again, cleaning surfaces that were already spotless, folding the same blankets twice. Anything to keep her mind from spinning. By afternoon, the apartment gleamed. Every corner was in perfect order. Too perfect, maybe. It looked like a display unit instead of a home. Caleb returned around midday, his steps quiet but certain. The girls ran in behind him, their laughter echoing for only a moment before they sensed the tension in the air. "Is it tonight?" Lena asked. Caleb nodded. "At 1900 sharp. They never come early." Arya swallowed hard. "And if they don't believe us?" He met her eyes. "Then they'll learn what real belief looks like." She wanted to argue, but his calm steadiness disarmed her every time. He wasn't pretending to be fearless. He simply refused to bend. Evening came fast. The light outside dimmed to a simulated dusk, casting long silver lines across the floor. The air purifier hummed softly. The table was set, bowls, spoons, glasses, all placed with machine-like symmetry. A pot of warm food simmered quietly, filling the room with the scent of varan root and spiced oil. Caleb stood near the door, checking the time. "They'll be here soon." Arya's pulse thudded in her ears. She adjusted the plain gray tunic she'd borrowed from his wife's old storage chest, then tucked her glowing hair behind her ears. "Do I look believable?" she asked. "You look like yourself," he said simply. "That's enough." Then the chimes sounded. Two soft notes, official, sterile, final. Arya froze. Caleb's hand brushed hers briefly, steadying her. "Open it." She did. Two inspectors stood in the doorway, wearing matching gray uniforms. Their faces were blank, neither cruel nor kind, just unreadable. One was a tall man with a datapad. The other, a woman with pale eyes that scanned everything before words were spoken. "Life Quality Bureau," the woman said. "Cohabitation verification for Resident Unit 7 East." Caleb nodded once. "You can begin." They stepped inside. Every movement was practiced. The man recorded room temperature and humidity. The woman made small observations about space, organization, and shared belongings. Arya's hands trembled as she poured water into glasses. "Duration of stay?" the woman asked without looking up. 5 days, Arya answered. Her voice sounded small. "And your relationship to Instructor Rook?" Before Arya could speak, Caleb said evenly, "Shared residence. Mutual household support." The man looked up from his screen. "Unregistered partnership? Recognized under care exemption," Caleb replied smoothly. "No code breach." The woman's gaze shifted to Arya. "You are aware that void residents are restricted from forming cohabitation agreements?" Arya steadied her breathing. "Yes," she said, "but I am not here under contract. I am here because I needed help, and he offered it." The woman didn't answer. She only wrote something down. The girls, who had been sitting quietly near the table, suddenly spoke up. "She helps with our homework," Lena said quickly. "And she cooks better than Dad," Sol added. The inspectors glanced at each other. For the first time, something human flickered across the woman's face, a hint of surprise. Caleb cleared his throat softly. "Would you like to join us for dinner? It's part of our evening routine." Protocol required them to accept. The inspectors sat, recording as they ate. Arya served the food carefully, her movements steady but deliberate. Every small act mattered. Passing a bowl, smiling at a joke, refilling water. It wasn't pretending, it was truth shown in quiet details. Halfway through, the male inspector looked up. "Instructor Rook, you understand that housing a reclassified void can affect your professional record if deemed unstable?" Caleb's expression didn't change. "I understand. And yet you proceeded." "Yes." "Why?" He placed his spoon down, met their eyes, and said simply, "Because no one else did." The room went still. Even the city hum outside seemed to pause. The woman's stylus hovered midair. "That's your answer?" He nodded. "It's the only one that matters." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the woman stood, closing her tablet. "We have what we need. You will receive your result within 2 cycles." When the door closed behind them, Arya's knees almost gave out. Caleb caught her arm before she fell. "It's over," he said quietly. She shook her head. "Not yet. They'll read everything, every word, every movement. Then they'll read the truth," he replied. Lena peeked out from behind the table. "Did we do okay?" Caleb smiled softly. You did perfect. Sol yawned. Can we sleep now? Go on, he said, ruffling her hair. When the girls were gone, Arya moved to the balcony. The mist outside was thicker than usual, glowing faintly in the light. Caleb joined her, leaning against the railing beside her. I thought they'd see through me, she said quietly. They did, he said. And they still didn't find anything wrong. She turned to him. You sounded like you meant every word. I did. Her eyes softened. You said I made this place complete. He looked at her. I don't say things I don't mean. For a long time, neither of them moved. The mist rose higher, curling around their shoulders. The city glowed below, sterile, mechanical, perfect, but in that small balcony, something real existed. Arya's voice came out as a whisper. What happens if they approve it? Then you stay, Caleb said simply. And if they don't, then we start again. His certainty made her chest ache. Without thinking, she stepped closer. Their hands brushed, barely touching. For the first time since she'd arrived, the silence didn't feel empty, it felt alive. In the reflection of the glass, two figures stood side by side. A man who refused to give up, and a woman the world had tried to erase. For now, that was enough. 2 full cycles passed before the console chimed again. Arya froze. Her hands were still damp from washing dishes. Caleb looked up from the small table, where he had been reviewing student reports. The girls stopped their quiet game and stared at the flashing blue light on the wall. Caleb tapped it. A holographic message unfolded in the air, lines of text glowing pale white. Life Quality Bureau, observation complete. Status approved. Resident file 71AX reclassified from void to dependent. Household recognized as stable. For a moment, no one moved. The words hung there, shimmering, unreal. Then Arya's knees gave out. She caught herself against the counter, her breath breaking into small, uneven laughs. I'm not void anymore, she whispered. Caleb smiled softly. No, you're not. Lena and Sol ran to her, wrapping their small arms around her waist. You can stay, Sol shouted. You can stay forever. Arya's hands trembled as she hugged them back. She felt warmth, life, weight, all the things she'd lost when the system erased her name. Thank you, she said through tears she didn't bother hiding. Thank you for letting me be seen again. Caleb stepped closer, holding the holographic slip for a long second before pressing his thumb to it. The message dissolved, leaving only faint light drifting through the air. Now it's just us, he said quietly. No more papers deciding who we are. That night, the apartment came alive with small, human sounds. Laughter. Footsteps. The gentle clatter of dishes being stacked. Lena hummed softly as she drew pictures on her tablet, 4 figures holding hands under a glowing dome. Arya stood at the balcony, her eyes on the city below. Helion's spoke still gleamed, perfect and cold, but now it looked different, less like a cage, more like a horizon. The mist shimmered with faint color, reflecting the strands of woven light she had hung days ago. They moved with the air, alive and shifting. Caleb joined her, standing close enough that their shoulders brushed. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, she said, you risked everything for me. I'd do it again, he replied. Because someone once waited 3 minutes too long to save the person they loved. I won't make that mistake twice. Her throat tightened. You saved me because you couldn't save her. Maybe, he said softly. But it doesn't make this less real. She turned toward him, eyes wet but steady. You could have walked past me like everyone else. I don't walk past people, he said simply. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. The hum of the ring, the faint laughter of children, the pulse of something fragile but alive between them. Arya reached out and placed her hand over his. You said belonging isn't a place, she whispered. You were right. It's people. Caleb smiled. A small, quiet smile that reached his eyes. Then welcome home. Outside, Helion's spoke continued its perfect rotation, lights tracing flawless circles through the void. But inside that small apartment on Deck 7 East, imperfection breathed. A human man, 2 children, and 1 alien woman once branded unworthy. Together, they had broken a rule and built something the system could never define. When the lights dimmed to artificial night, Arya looked one last time at the dark window. Her reflection stared back, not erased, not forgotten, not void. Alive. And for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. She was part of it.